U.S. and Filipino forces show firepower at sea amid China tension. So apparently the U.S. and Filipino forces ended up destroying a ship and sinking it with a barrage of high-precision rockets, airstrikes, and artillery fire in their largest war drills on Wednesday in the Philippine waters facing the disputed South China Sea, which are likely to antagonize China. Basically saying this is what we could do if we went to war with you. The U.S. is now helping the Philippines, and they're basically shoring up in Philippine waters. They're working very closely with them, which definitely pisses off China. But at the same time, China has been pushing pretty much everyone around the South China Sea. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. watched the American show of firepower from an observation tower in the coastal town of San Antonio in northwestern Zambales province, the latest indication of his strong backing of the Philippines' treaty alliance with the U.S. Marcos, who has ordered his military to shift its focus to external defense from decades-long domestic anti-insurgency battles as China increasingly aggressive actions in the South China Sea become a top concern. The shift from in the Philippine defense focus is in sync with the President JB administration aim of reinforcing the arc of alliances in the Indo-Pacific region, better counter China. So again, this is yet another country which has essentially taken away their focus off of the terrorism and things like this and anti-insurgents to now China. We saw this about 4 or 5 years ago, or at least back when Theresa May was in, when they changed over in the UK. We saw many other countries change over to their focus on Russia and China as their biggest enemy instead of, the boogeyman in the sand. And of course, now this is yet another. We are seeing countries take sides. And in my opinion, I'll talk about France a little bit later, but they might be on the wrong one very, very soon. We'll talk about this and much, much more on tonight's episode of Marfoogle TV. Again, really good stuff tonight, so don't miss it. We'll be right back right after this. Nothing in this show should be considered legal, medical, or financial advice. The views of the callers can differ considerably and do not necessarily reflect my opinion, Dex's opinion, or anyone else who works with the show. You should always do your own research and consult with professionals. The internet is full of fake news, so please take everything with a grain of salt. If you have not already, it helps us out if you end up going through any of our affiliates, and it helps you out if you end up protecting yourself against cybercrime. NordVPN is one of the best and one of the easiest to use. If you do not have a virtual private network, it protects your IP address, which is your online identity, which actually connects to your real address and everything else. It also connects to you. If you know anything about how they are data logging and basically getting your profiles down, you can prevent that by having a VPN. Nord is, again, one of the easiest. Download it. It's like an on switch and off switch. All you have to do. Go to marfooglenews.com/VPN. Not only will you get a giant discount on this, but you will also be helping us. I appreciate your support, and I appreciate everyone that goes through any of our affiliates. Can't say thank you enough. All right, what is going on, guys? It is Adam, a.k.a. Marf, and this is Marfoogle News. We're going to go over some pretty interesting stories that have just come out in the last 24 hours. And if you are new here, you can always go over to marfooglenews.com, and you can find a full bibliography of every single article, tweet, video, picture, document that we go over here today. We're going to talk about, of course, everything that is happening right now. And also, we have a whole lot more on our website. If you go to the overflow, that is all the stuff that could not fit into the show. Make sure to head down there for any of the political stuff that is, of course, a very fiery subject. So make sure to go check that out as well. Let's bring in my co-host/internet brother, Dex James. What is going on and how are you doing today?
Hello, Adam, and hello, Foogle fam. I'm doing just fine.
So, first of all, the Philippines is... it's very confusing right now because many of us, including myself, believe that our prez does not have the best intentions. This isn't like a left or a right thing. It's looking at the actions that we have taken as far as the U.S. has actually done as far as helping China in a lot of ways. China is taking notes from the U.S. from back when U.S. became a world dominant power. Now we see China doing the same thing. In fact, we'll have stories in a little bit here about how they're trying to be the peacemaker in the conflict that's going on over there. They're essentially doing all of these big things. Frankly, each one is a big thing, but they're doing them all over the place, and they're essentially trying to be a world superpower. Now, many have looked at what is going on over there and saying, well, it's actually going to happen. The crazy part is even though everybody knows why they're doing all of this and what they're doing, it's still going to work. Somehow it's going to work, especially with how everything is going here. And I say here in the U.S. because the U.S. was the one that basically kept everybody else down, and in some ways kept people down and countries down in a bad way. But in China's case, I sure as heck hope they keep them down. I do not want a China government ruling me. I'm so glad, and I'm very, very blessed to have been born in the U.S. I don't take it for granted. Well, we all complain about how we're losing rights, but we still have more rights than most of these other countries that have rulers like Xi. So I'm very blessed, not happy with where this is going, and it's getting even worse. And most of you guys agree. All of the draconian measures that are being put in place, especially since 2019, they're getting scary. But as far as this goes, the confusing part is that we are now going into the Philippines. This would be something, an action to be done to hold China back. If China can control and push out and push on all of its neighbors, that actually is not not a good thing for anybody else. It's a good thing for China. It's not for anybody else. So if the U.S. and the military stays basically right around them, that is strategically a really good thing to do. So it confuses me because you do see actions from the administration that are technically good, but everybody questions, like, who is this guy's side? There's honestly a lot of things there that if you see the bills and the acts and the things that they have undone, and it just looks like somebody is in their pockets. But yeah, so Dex, what do you think about the Philippines? There's war drills going on all over the world. We're about to see another gigantic one, the largest ever, by NATO.
Well, this is we've moved from rhetoric, from announcement to action. So we're seeing the actual event unfold as far as the drill goes. This was supposed to be very big, and we've talked about it a couple of times here over the last couple of weeks as it's been announced and planned, and China's barked at it, not liking what they're doing. And then to the other point you were making, that some people believe that there's some inside efforts happening with our administration or with others to try to throw things towards Xi's way. If that was the case, and very likely could be, who knows, but if that was the case, it wouldn't be something that would be so obvious, in the sense that, we would still hold drills. We would still invest in our military. We would still act like they're our adversary, because if we didn't do all those things, then it would be too obvious. So for them to do something like that, that would be, if someone was to do something such as that would be very treasonous, they wouldn't do it as openly and blatantly. So I think they would have to continue to uphold all of the actions that we normally would have taken if that wasn't the case. Ooh. So that's why I think it's confusing for many, because you see these little things, but you don't see the whole big thing. It's not like we've just gone all in for Xi, but at the same time, you wonder, why do these little things happen that they shouldn't have done? We'll call you and let you know before we invade you, or we nuke you. We'll pick up the phone and give you a heads up before anything happens. Stuff like that. It's really disheartening. Yeah,
when TMan was in office, he actually called his counterpart in China and said, hey, don't worry, if our president ends up pushing the button for a preemptive nuclear strike, which its entire purpose is to be by surprise, don't worry, I'm the guy before the button, so I will give you a call and let you know. That would be considered treason, or whatever the heck else they call it, seditious actions, or whatever it's called. It's bad, and it's still bad. And he admitted this. And because people hated our president at the time so much, they were like, oh, yeah, good job. Cheer him on. Keep him in there. He is still in power after admitting that he openly called our adversary and said, we'll tell you if we're going to surprise attack you. That's insanity. That's People are so blind for their hatred for who just say that was any president. Are you an American? Like, why would you have that be acceptable? I don't understand it. Because everybody was afraid that he was going to start a conflict. We didn't have a conflict during TMan's reign. None. It was peaceful. But the second that he goes out, we do. And it's funny because in 2016 they said, oh, well, if TMan win, it's going to be conflict. When we were saying if Hillary won, it was going to be conflict. Well, all of the same party. I mean, they're all cronies. They're all the same party. They're the same people, the same circle of friends. They're all related. I mean, look at JB. He was the VP for Obama. I mean, like it's just crazy. So what you made me think of is, what if Philippines not known for like the poster boy for being square bears there. What if Marcos and all that? What if the whole Philippines are actually on China's side, and they're doing that for exactly that reason, to not make it obvious? I don't know. It's crazy to think about. And then Iranian hacking group targets Israel with improved phishing attacks. So cyber attacks, again, are something that is a big thing that we should be looking at, because any cyber attack right now is definitely going to be something to pay attention to, especially after Davos. 93% of the experts in the world, the very top-rated people, said that it was a high probability that the world would have a catastrophic cyber event in the next 2 years. They gave that a 93% chance. And then business leaders, the owners of all of the top corporations, which we know are the corporations that are actually above our governments, basically making decisions for the top dollar and for their brands, 86% of them said that they believe the same thing. So what do they know that we don't? What are they basing this off of? Well, as far as this goes, people think, oh, this is just a regional thing between these two. These two could cause WW3. Something very, very bad happens to Israel, then a lot of other people are going to get involved. But it says Iranian state-sponsored threat actor Educated Manticore has been observed deploying an updated version of its Windows backdoor Powerless to target Israel for phishing attacks, according to a new report by Checkpoint. Researchers have also linked Educated Manticore hackers to APT Phosphorus, which operates in the Middle East and North America. It says the research presents a new and improved infection chain leading to the deployment of a new version of Powerless. This is the implant was attributed to Phosphorus in the past. It says Phosphorus has been active since 2017. It has been attributed to a series of campaigns in recent years, especially those wherein the APT posed as journalists and scholars to deceive targets into installing malware and stealing classified information. While the Powerless payload was similar to that deployed by Phosphorus, researchers said that there have been improved tool sets used as loading methods. It says, quote, the actor has significantly improved its tool set, utilizing rarely seen techniques, most prominently using .NET executables constructed as mixed mode assembly, a mixture of .NET and naive C++ code. It improves tools functionality, and it makes the analysis of the tool to be more difficult. So, Dex, can you translate that for us into simpleton's terms?
Yeah, we're getting way in the weeds. So this is what's interesting here is that this is only being reported in the cyber community around. That's why it's a very geeked out article, and there's no reason to really go into all of why mixed mode assembly and C++ code and .NET executables are important here. I think the main message is that we're seeing this uptick, and not only that, it's been a very popular tool that has been used, but obviously was one that they had built systems around to prevent. Has been updated, and they're updating it, and specifically, it's that the Iran is using it to go after and go after them directly, probably to either infiltrate systems or gain access to material that they need, classified information, things like that. So this is a notification that it's on the uptick. It's not being talked about in mainstream. It's only in these more geekier areas of of the internet where they talk about cybersecurity. That's why this article is nowhere near written for a generalized audience. But this is really important because we're seeing this uptick coming from and against these two major adversaries in the Middle East.
And this was talked about in this Cyber Reason, this get together that they had. And what they said is that we are going to see more activity after this, and we're going to see more things affected. If you go back to some of the huge hacks that happened, like SolarWinds, that we still have not seen the major the problems that have come from that. There were some serious groups involved in that, and whatever information they got or whatever they ended up accessing, it still hasn't affected us to the grand scale. The reason why I think they said 93% that something was going to happen, I think that was actually based on what happened with SolarWinds and the exact information that they located. If you look, they specifically located and got into and broke into the Black Start program. The Black Start program is our plan here in the U.S. on how we would restart the power grid if it were to go down. When the grid goes down, essentially whatever's left, whatever communications they all have, the government, the military, they're trying to figure stuff out and get everything back going. If our grid gets knocked down, it could be anywhere from 6 to 24 months to get back up. Most say 6 to 18 months. So we're talking about over a year without power on average, right? If something, if things are going really well, a year, right? That is something where they say 90% of us would perish because of an event like that. And it's not because we'd be taking each other out. It would be because of infrastructure to clean water, to all of the things that we basically take for granted right now. The reason why I think that they are saying that 93% chance is because they know what they accessed during SolarWinds. Not only did they access SolarWinds, they accessed multiple places around the country, and they accessed the parts of these systems that were actually able to make badges, codes, entrance badges. They were able to put people in the system. And they said for them to go through all of what they accessed, it was almost impossible. There were multiple, there were thousands and thousands of break-ins over the SolarWinds, because that SolarWinds was a backdoor into almost everything. So when they went in, they accessed very specific things. Like, say, accessing HR. Well, you wouldn't think too much of that, but human resources or whatever department is in charge of new hires. Well, say you hire somebody for a government job. Well, what do they need? They need to get a background check. They need to, they put all of their information in the system. They, do all of their checks. They do all of that. They give them access codes. They give them badges and things like that. Well, they could have literally put in thousands of people, put in all of their background information. So if somebody says, hey, do you work here? Yeah, here's my badge. That badge then has a number, then it has who hired them. It has all of the history put in there, and it also has their resume, when they were hired, all of that. So if it was somebody, trying to go into a nuclear establishment or a water plant, they go, oh, yeah, sorry, I didn't know you. Oh, you must be new. No, I've worked here for 4 years. Even if they look it up, they can see, oh, you just got transferred. That's the kind of stuff that they accessed, and it was very specific, and we covered it back then. With the stuff that's going on in the Middle East, don't put this off. These groups are doing this all over the place. So these hacks are something that we need to pay attention to, and people need to have a plan if things go south. And I think less than, say, a nuke happening or something, I think just the lights going out or things like that happening, that is way, way more likely than anything else. A cyber event that knocks out something in our infrastructure that essentially makes it hell on earth, that's the kind of thing that a lot of people are expecting. It says U.S. to send nuclear ballistic submarines to the Korean Peninsula. President JB and Yoon Suk Yeol on Wednesday will sign an agreement that includes plans to have U.S. nuclear-armed submarines dock in South Korea for the first time in more than 40 years. A conspicuous show of support to Seoul amid growing concern about nuclear threats by North Korea. according to senior President Biden administration officials. It said that the planned dock visits are a key element of what's being dubbed as Washington Declaration, aimed at deterring North Korea from carrying out an attack on its neighbor. It is being unveiled as President B is hosting Yoon for a state visit during the moment of heightened anxiety for both leaders over an increased pace of ballistic missile tests by North Korea over the last several months. So, and by the way, Dex, do we know if it was parts of what's being dubbed Washington Declaration? Is that the operation of them moving those there, or was this referencing something else? Do you know? If that's what their like code name for it was, Washington Declaration, that's kind of like declaration of war.
That's an ominous name for sure. But I think this may fall under that whole notion of what our current president said they were going to do, but then they wouldn't tell us what it was they're doing. But now we're finding out bits and pieces. In this case, we're going to dock a nuclear sub there. On one hand, it's like this is more visual and more PR than anything, because if we needed to, and we probably have had a nuclear sub sitting in the water over there all this time, we probably had multiples going up and down through there. So we've always had them. I'd be shocked if we didn't have them in that area. So, but I guess just putting it on the dock makes it a little bit more significant in the face of Kim.
And I just pulled up the official Washington Declaration. This literally and exactly references this action on the 26th day of April, 2023, to mark the 70th anniversary of the U.S. ROC Alliance. The alliance between our two nations has been forged, and it says to commemorate this historic year for our alliance, President JB and President Yoon have committed to develop an ever stronger mutual defense relationship. So essentially, they're going to be putting reliance on the U.S. nuclear deterrent. So they're putting nukes back there. We just talked about this yesterday. What they would do. They had nukes there. They took them out. Now they're putting them back in the form of these submarines. So it's just one more thing that could possibly go wrong. Dex, I will hold on here. I'm going to just put this. I will put this in. I'll put this in next, just so you can add it to the website. All right, and then Dex, do you want to cover the next piece here, which is the dollar dominance?
So this is again talking about BRICS, which I know we spoke about last night. There's new countries that are trying to join. And as a recap, BRICS is the formation of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, specifically to try to push foreign policy around currencies and trying to create an alternative or de-dollarization, if you want to call it that, or an alternative to the dollar. By partnering those countries up. So what's happened here, just a viewpoint, but it's coming from a former White House economist. And he's basically saying that this would, the dollar's dominance would face a threat unlike any other from a BRICS currency. So if they actually do create this BRICS currency that, based on this economist, and obviously he had a position in the White House, Joseph Sullivan, I think he was staff economist, White House economic advisor during TMan's administration, and also wrote foreign policy. That if they pull this off, if they're able to get together and create a currency across those countries, that would actually be a very serious threat to the de-dollarization. So that's just one person's view. We've all talked about this. I think there's plenty of people out there that suggest that, yes, things are getting worse for the dollar, but it's not over yet, or, it's not as bleak as others are making it out to be. I don't necessarily know myself. I sort of think that all of these things are signs of the direction that the ship is sort of heading, and it's not heading in a path of the dollar dominance anymore. It's heading in a path of we're going to see multiple currency dominance, if not some single currency that starts to dominate the world as they would probably prefer with, and I know a lot of people have talked about this whole notion of, resetting things. So anyway, long story short, this economist is saying it's bad news. We've sort of said, hey, this could be bad news. And I think we need to keep paying attention to it, and think about what the future may hold if the dollar no longer is the dominant currency in the world.
And one of the quotes here, it says it would be like a new union of the up-and-coming discontents who, on the scale of GDP, now collectively outweigh not only the reigning hegemon, the United States, but the entire G7 weight class put together. So that's something to pay attention to. They get together, they actually outweigh the U.S. and all of the G7. This is. I think this is happening, and I think that there's so much money involved here. People are getting paid off. People are. I have a feeling. It's so funny that France kind of, we're distancing ourselves from the U.S. Isn't it funny that China has a ghost city that literally looks like a carbon copy of Paris, France? It's like if you have a seat at the new table, you'll probably have a city or the city of your choice, carbon copy of it in the ghost cities. I couldn't believe that they had a Jackson Hole, Wyoming carbon copy in these ghost cities. Is that for when the rest of the world is destroyed? The leaders that end up helping their world domination feat get to go to their a city that's almost just like theirs, and they'll probably even get to run that city or be the governor of that city, right? With ultimate power. The Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Well, what's so special about Jackson Hole, Wyoming? Oh, the elites go there. I wonder if anybody can figure out, is that where JB likes to spend his time or has a house there or something? Which politician goes to Jackson Hole, Wyoming? Because it is like an Aspen. It's like an Aspen, Colorado type of town, right? So, and there's a bunch of these. It's like who's choosing what ghost cities to build there? And they're all empty. They're literally empty. They're upkept. They have constant janitorial services, keeping them clean. And the excuse is that it's part of their whole economic system, and it's actually, one big sham to keep money going because they keep building and it helps their economy. I don't know. I think that thing is, those are there for some more ominous reason than that. But that's just my opinion. What's yours? Let me know in the comments below. Let me know why the ghost cities are actually the reason why they're about to collapse. And then ban on Chinese citizens and others owning property in Texas gets initial approval in Senate. Who knows if this will actually go through, but some are actually, I have to say, it's crazy how many straight up Chinese citizens are going and buying property everywhere. I know that locally here, near Seattle, there's smaller towns like Bellevue. There's places where, this was an actual stat, that's 68% of the same middle school I went to is now all Chinese. I thought that was pretty crazy considering that it was, I think, 2.5% just 15 years ago. So that shows you, what people are buying houses there, what people are settling in. Now, there's, of course, Microsoft. There's all of these companies, Boeing. There's all these companies, the tech companies that had people move in. But there's also actual stats showing all over the West Coast and in some of these places that there's foreign buyers buying these houses, buying these things. And it's not just China. It's all these different countries. But China's a huge percentage of that. And there's also things like golden passports, right? I don't know what our system is, but I bet we have one if on the low if it's not public. But many countries, if you invest a certain amount of money, you will actually get a dual citizenship. In fact, we've covered a story that shows you the 10 cheapest golden passports, countries in the world where essentially if you buy a house there, you will have dual citizenship from their government officially. But it's like, it's a pretty crazy thing to think about where whole cities now their actual, the numbers of people that are living there and the people that actually live there has turned completely into a different place. I mean, it's nuts. It says many citizens of China couldn't own large properties in Texas under a bill the state Senate gave its initial approval on Tuesday. The bill has decried as racist and faced widespread condemnation from Asian American Texans, as well as residents from Iran, Russia, and countries also targeted the ban. Senators approved the proposal from Brenham, Republican Lois Kolkhorst, on party lines. It says it would prohibit citizens of China, Iran, North Korea, and Russia from buying large swaths of land in Texas, with some exceptions, using a threat assessment report from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence as the basis for the ban. So they're saying it's this, they're saying it's that, but they're ignoring what the actual assessments are saying. There's something actually happening. There's a reason that this is being talked about, because massive swaths of land are being bought out from the U.S. from other countries. And there's very specific countries that are buying a ton. There's also other countries that have actually just completely said, we're not going to let any foreigners buy from our country at all. So our own people can actually buy these houses or buy these plots of land. I want to say New Zealand or Australia. One of them actually put a pause on buying because so many outsiders were buying property. It says this is discrimination against Chinese Americans, said Jianxi, a member of multiple North Texas organizations with ties to the Asian and Chinese American communities, including the Asian Culture and Education Society USA. We're going to continue calling members of the House representatives to express our concerns. Now, I wonder, does this bill say that if you are, say, just a regular Chinese American, that you can't buy a house there? Or does it say that if you are from China and that you can, or your dual citizenship from China and can't buy a house or plots of land? Dex, go ahead.
It actually does have provisions that allows people from adversarial countries to buy properties for businesses so they can pursue the American dream, to buy property for their homestead, even up to 20 acres. What it does do, what they're trying to do is prevent them from buying large amounts of land, which stemmed from the, I think it was, there was at Lachlan, one of the bases there that was determined that they had bought a ton of land around that, and that caused an issue. There's also been an existing law in Texas that bans companies based in China, Iran, NK, and Russia from owning critical infrastructure. So they already have certain, laws like this in place. They're just trying to add a law that covers large amounts of land, because it was a Chinese firm that had purchased land near Laughlin Air Force Base in Val Verde County. So I remember we reported on that, probably a year or so ago, maybe more, because there was a lot of concerns about why are they buying that land, and it's so close to this Air Force base, and it's in line with what could they be doing with it. So there's a lot of issues around this, but fundamentally at a high level, there's, you can see what they're trying to do is prevent this land grab that we have seen quite often, and even in other states from China, as well as potentially other countries. They name the other adversaries of ours, but I think this is mostly targeted at China.
And Naomi in chat says, my uncle said that they are going around offering cash for businesses. Not only is this a absolute thing, so one of my family members that still lives in Bellevue, Washington, they are offering cash for houses, and they call on a weekly basis. They will call, and it's always, and they say they represent a team of investors who would like to buy your house. We will buy it for cash. We will buy it right now. We will offer you going over what the house is worth, and they're always over. It says over. And from all of the people that I know that have bought a house in Washington in the last 5 years, all of them, almost, I believe there's not one of them that hasn't been outbid on a house on their first, second, or third try. And most of the time, it is from an investment company or somebody else that will offer over what is being asked, and but not by like a little bit, by a lot. We're talking not, $10,000 or $20,000. We're talking $150,000 over asking price to get it sealed up right then. And Luthamus, I absolutely agree with you. As far as like, if you think about it, maybe, this is, it's very easy to call something like this something, label it. But when it comes down to it, there's very specific countries that are altering our future right now, and they are doing very specific things, and it's not like it's even subtle. So I guess, is the paranoia just? Let us know. Again, that proposed new law emerged after reports surfaced that the Chinese firm purchased land near Laughlin Air Force Base in Val Verde County. Now, after that happened, they actually showed about 6 or 7 other examples near bases where they were doing this. And I bet you not all of that is public. All right, before we move on, make sure to go over and check out EMP Shield. This is a device that can actually protect you if there is an event like an EMP, if any of our adversaries, including North Korea or China or Russia or any of them, end up launching an EMP at us. This is a device that can protect your car and keep it running, not only throughout it, but it can actually ground the signal in less than 500 trillionths of a second before it's able to fry whatever you have it on. They make them for cars, trucks, ATVs, boats. Of course, they make them for motorcycles. They also make them for ham radios, solar generators, pretty much anything that you can name to keep running. They probably make a device for it. Again, go to marfooglenews.com/EMP. The car version, which is their most popular, of course, that is the easiest to put in about 10 minutes. You can put it in your own car, and you'll be able to get home to bug in or to get out to bug out. Again, this is also available for your home. You have to have an electrician do it, but the great part about the home version is once somebody wires it into your house, then you will actually have everything within 250 linear feet. Essentially, most houses, everything that's plugged in from that will be protected. So really, really cool stuff. The company also outfits agencies like DHS, DOD, and the DEMSO team helping protect the Texas grid. All right, and then Xi tells Zelensky China has always stood on the side of peace during first call since invasion. So they talked, and remember, they kept calling in the media, oh, Xi needs to talk to Zelensky. Why? Why are people calling for this? Why is everybody saying, oh, yeah, they could be the solution? France, Macron is saying that, well, he believes that China could be the solution. It says President Xi Jinping has insisted that China is neutral and has always stood on the side of peace in the conflict between Russia and UKR in his first phone call with President Vladimir since the invasion began. The nearly 1-hour discussion, which reportedly included Xi advocating for peace negotiations, was met by Russian accusations that UKR was undermining efforts to end the fighting. Well, as far as UKR, the officials there are saying, heck no, we're not going to give up until we get every inch back. It says the Chinese leader has come under increased pressure from Western nations to step in and mediate. Did you hear this? The Chinese leader, Xi, is being pressured from Western nations, from NATO nations. We're telling them, China, can you go in there and fix this, please? Who is telling them? It says, and now has said that his country plans to send in a peace envoy to UKR to help facilitate talks. It says during the call, which was initiated with Kiev, Xi told Zelensky talks and negotiation were the only way out of a war. Beijing has refused to condemn Russia's aggression since the invasion last year, and Xi's been criticized for his close ties with Vladimir Putin, who met with him during a friendly visit to Moscow last month in his first overseas trip since the election, or the replacing. Zelensky has repeatedly said that there would be open to talks with his Chinese counterpart, and Wednesday's telephone call was initiated by the UKR side. Yu Jun from China's foreign ministry told the press conference. On the issue of the UKR crisis, China has always stood on the side of peace, and its core position is to promote peace talks. According to the readout from the call, Xi said China will neither watch the fire from the other side nor add fuel to the fire, let alone take advantage of the crisis to profit. When dealing with the nuclear issue, all parties concerned should remain calm and restrained, truly focus on the future and destiny of themselves and all mankind, and jointly manage and control the crisis, Xi said. I had a long and meaningful phone call with President Xi Jinping, Zelensky said. I believe that this call, as well as the appointment of UKR's ambassador to China, did you hear that? they said from this call, they said, oh, we're going to put in a UKR ambassador to China. Will give powerful impetus to the development of our bilateral relations. Zelensky's spokesman, Sergei Nev, said on Facebook. Now, there's a part about, let's see here. Yeah, so so let's go to this. It's actually in the next one. We'll talk about that here in a second. The government statement reported by the state TV gave no indication whether Chinese envoy would visit Russia. China will send a special representative of the Chinese government on Eurasian affairs to UKR and other countries to conduct an in-depth communication with all parties on the political settlement of the UKR crisis. So before I go into this next one is actually really good, and I think this is the one it talks about. Yeah, talks. Yes. It says, so China doesn't want peace in UKR. Czech president warns. It says China cannot be trusted to mediate peace between Russia and UKR. Czech President Petr Pavel is warning, telling Politico that Beijing benefits from prolonging the conflict. His comments come as China is trying to position itself as a peacemaker in UKR, recently floating a vague roadmap ending the conflict. Remember that? They said they've got a plan for this to all go away. And UKR said, heck no, we're not dealing with it. And while most Western allies have been skeptical of the overtures, some countries like France insist that China could play a major role in peace talks. So if you haven't wrote off Macron yet, I'm sorry. It's like, dude, it is incredibly obvious. After his meeting, one day after he meets with Xi, he says, we're going to distance ourselves from the U.S. Can people see through this stuff? I'm not buying it. Pavel, a former general and senior NATO leader, was unequivocal. However, when it comes to UKR, he argued that China only wants what's best for itself, and for now, that's more conflict. I believe that it is in China's interest to prolong the status quo, Pavel said, because it can push Russia to a number of concessions. I partly agree with him, and I agree with him about, they could definitely benefit, especially if they are selling weapons, or if they can profit, or if they keep Russia doing this, they will be able to take Taiwan, and USA will not be able to do a two-front conflict. We know this. Russia knows this, and China knows this. According to all of our State Department, their foreign ministry, they've done it. The only way that China would beat the USA is if the USA was fighting more than one full-on war. And that's assuming, and I'm assuming, we will be at conflict with Russia, with NATO, and Taiwan will be going down at the same time. But that's just my thoughts. Dex, do you want to comment?
No, I totally agree. It's in their best interest if we continue dumping all of our munitions and equipment and everything we can into UKR. Sure, it depletes Russia, but it certainly depletes the West quite a bit, because we're funding and funneling all of our gear and equipment over there. Then that causes us to be weaker and more easier to defeat if they try to do anything like go to Taiwan or any of the other things that they've talked about. So yeah, this is totally in their interest to prolong this. It's also in their interest, though, to look like the shining star should a peace deal come about. So when the time is right because conflict does come to an end. It doesn't last forever. It has to come to an end, and it usually does through some sort of, either major defeat or some sort of peace agreement. It wouldn't surprise me if they don't also benefit greatly from having that be their, shining star, that China was the one that brokered the peace deal, because then they're trying to look like the big leader in the globe around all the other countries, and that they came in and solved the problem that the West and the U.S. couldn't.
And that was the other thought. Did any of you have a thought when you read this or heard about this that maybe this will all of a sudden end and China is the hero? That China comes out and then the whole world starts reiterating how they were the reason why this all ended, and that they're the big heroes and the savior, which only puts them, then they can use that later in the UN or in all of these other meetings and things. They'll be able to push China up on a pedestal. They're trying to act like the U.S. And they're not doing it with good intentions either. Like, there's no other way to put this. China is going for world domination. Xi is the closest, in my opinion, Xi is the closest thing to modern day Genghis Khan there is. And then China warns the U.S. against military cooperation with Taiwan. I just want to reiterate, though, too, I have nothing against the people. But the Xi and his government, that's a different story. And then Xi has warned the U.S. military against any form of cooperation with Taiwan following reports that the Pentagon was sending officers to train troops in the island. It says, we resolutely oppose the U.S. having any form of official or military contact with China's Taiwan region. Of course, saying it as that is China's Taiwan region. Ms. Zhu was responding to Taiwanese media reports that the U.S. has sent some 200 military personnel, mostly Marines, to Taiwan to train the troops. And if you remember, there was an accidental tweet or something. One of the higher up officials accidentally tweeted basically a list of where U.S. troops were. And at one of them, it said Taiwan. It was said like something like 20,000 or 30,000 troops are there. And then they said that was a mistake. Oh, whoops, that was an accident. I believe that was a real number, and it was an accident. Like they accidentally shared that, or he was told, say that was an accident. I believe that there is many more than 200 troops there, but that's just my thoughts. What's yours, Dex? Do you remember that when one of the government officials tweeted that there were like 30,000 troops there? That's a big deal because that's technically China, according to China.
Absolutely. I recall that for sure. And, this statement, this is more clear. It's like we're sending in, and it's not just that we're sending in troops, but we're also, it sounds like there's going to be defense contractors and others, and those don't necessarily count as troops, which is another interesting way to solve these problems. You can send in, the profit version of your military in and conduct things and do certain things, and they don't necessarily count as troop numbers. So that's another tactic that's going to be used here as well.
Yeah. So as far as, how are they going to take this? Don't know. By the way, thank you so much watching in slow motion. Thank you guys for joining us. Craig Lonsinger, thanks. Marf and Dex, love you guys. Thank you, Craig, and I hope you're still here. Thank you for opening up the Super Chats. First one out today. Ryan B. says, you guys rock. Thank you so much. Fairies of Venus, thank you for supporting Independent. Thank you so much for the large support tonight. $100 Super Chat. That's not necessary. So much appreciated, though. Thank you, Fairies of Venus. And then happy birthday, Jammer1. Ilea, thank you for pointing that out. Jammer, again, you will get a happy, happy song just closer to the end. Thank you, Jammer. And by the way, if you guys don't know Jammer is over on Friends. Make sure to go over and follow him on Twitter and on DLive. Jammer is an awesome guy. He doesn't really care if you follow him or not. He doesn't do this for that. He is a very, very incredible guy. He is very sweet. He cares about others, and he is always looking out for other people. So make sure to go check out all of our wonderful mods over on marfooglenews.com/friends. And if you can, wish Jammer a birthday in the chat, both on DLive and on YouTube. He was started out as a DLive on, a mod on DLive. Now he is on both. He's a very awesome guy. He's a very, 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 just an amazing human being. He's also had many health issues, so if you guys can throw him a prayer as well, he deserves every bit of them. All right, and then Russian troops digging trenches in UKR reportedly infected with anthrax. Dex, do you want to go over this?
So apparently they've been digging, as we've reported on, they've dug tons of trenches, especially these really big ones, these massively long and wide ones. But in this particular case, some troops are all of a sudden apparently reportedly infected with anthrax after unearthing a burial site for cattle while digging trenches in southern UKR. So Obviously, they were immediately quarantined, and doctors diagnosed the cases, and they told them to stop digging there, and they're trying to figure out what's going on. But that's something you don't hear every day. Digging trenches and run into that type of bacterial infection. That's kind of nasty and can cause all sorts of problems.
Yeah, it can. And as far as anthrax, you don't hear that very often, or at least not anymore. And they were ordered into immediate quarantine after doctors diagnosed cases of the deadly disease in at least 2 soldiers, according to Ivan Fedorov. And then Russia's seizure of 2 foreign firms' assets is a warning shot to the West. Dex, can you explain how this is a warning shot?
Well, this is, I guess their way of sort of pushing back at these sanctions. They threatened the wheat, and they've threatened other things, and of course they run around the sanctions to try to generate revenue. So, but what they're doing here is specifically going after assets and seizing them, just like their assets have been seized. But they're going after these other individuals that they can find in companies and whatnot that have any assets in their country, and they're now seizing them and holding them. So this was a couple of I don't think it's a huge deal, but it is certainly symbolic. And to the people who are losing their assets, it's definitely going to be to some extent. I don't know how much of their assets they actually stored in Russia, but if they did, and they have them there, they're getting seized. So Uniper, I think, was one of the companies, and a Finland company as well. So German company and a Finland company are the couple of early I guess examples being made of by having their assets seized and not being allowed to take and use their money.
So, and we'll probably see that more so. There's going to be a lot of tit for tats that end up happening. Jammer, happy birthday, man. And I really am happy to have you along with the team. Thank you for being absolutely awesome. Before we move on, I do want to remind you guys, if you haven't already, make sure to go over and check out all of the different energy solar generators. These are all solar, so you can get panels, and you can actually get unlimited power from the sun. It's a lot better than paying $5 a gallon for gas. What is really awesome about any of the energy solar generators is they are also silent, which means that you can do this in stealth. To have a gas generator, be heard from blocks away during an SHTF situation is not good. These are silent. They do not put any harmful gases out, so you can have them inside your home. You can also, of course, have them extended. With the Flex systems, like the new Flex Tactical and the Energy, you can actually extend them up to 96 batteries. So you can turn this into a professional system that you have do all of your stuff, or you can have it be a portable system that you put in your truck, take with you to work, use for your power tools, or you can end up using them for camping, whatever else, or just for an emergency if the lights go out. You can plug your stuff in and keep going. It has been absolutely instrumental in our lives as far as being able to even go up to the cabin and have power on demand like this, or when we have lost our power at least 8 or 10 times now in the last couple of years, we have been able to just keep going. Many, of course, if they have rolling blackouts, they've had to go somewhere or go to a family's house or something like that. To be able to have this is pretty amazing. The Flex also is a great system because it can be altered. There are mods that work like Legos. They all stack, and you can actually change the overall performance of it or the input and output of it. For example, there is a supercharger unit that you can essentially put in, and you can end up taking in 12 panels instead of 4 as a max. So you can triple the input, and you can cut the charging time in a third. Go to marfooglenews.com/energy. Make sure to use the code Marfoogle. Not only will you get a discount, but you'll also be helping our channel at the same time. It's one of the best. They're built like trucks, and I wholly back these. These are the best on the market, in my opinion. Also, check out the Kodiak X2. There may be extra sales on the X2 and LT while supplies last. All right, and then senior Citi banker departs shortly after the report of the EpiPen meetings. There should be a lot more departures than this, but it says that April 25th, Citigroup senior executive Paul Barrett has left the bank, it said on Tuesday, days after media reports that he met with disgraced financier Jeffrey EpiPen while he was employed at rival JP Morgan Chase. This, of course, until recently, Citi was unaware of Paul Barrett's association with EpiPen, which predated his employment with our firm. Mr. Barrett is no longer employed by Citi. The news of the departure was first reported by Financial Times. JP Morgan bankers continued to have meetings with offender EpiPen after the bank decided to close his accounts in 2013. The Wall Street Journal reported citing people familiar with the matter. On April 18th, the federal judge had ordered JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon to set aside 2 days for depositions about what he knew about the bank's relationship with former client EpiPen. JP Morgan, the largest U.S. bank, faces lawsuits seeking damages by women who claim that EpiPen abused them, and by U.S. Virgin Islands, where the late financier had a home. So a lot has been coming out, and by the way, the full list, I don't know if you've seen some of the lists that have been put out. There's been debate on whether if you do put that list on Twitter, if you'll get taken off. I do know at least 2 people that placed the full unredacted list out, and they temporarily got suspended, but both of them got put on. So people are like worried about sharing it, but then there's enough people out there that it is all over the place. Dex, have you seen the list, either redacted or unredacted, of all the people? They're kind of black book.
I've seen the older lists. I haven't seen the newer lists.
So the newer one, there's a lot of stuff on there. One thing I don't understand is why is not everyone on that list getting scrutinized by this? There are tons of people. I mean, like, it's insane. And most people assume, oh, well, some people it was business, right? His business was all the same thing. Yeah, maybe it was some like investment, but they knew what he was doing. Everyone knew what he was doing. In those circles, everyone knew. So did people basically sell their soul? Like if they took an investment from his firms or whatever from him, they knew what that money was from. Everything attached to that is part of the same group. It's insane. That guy got taken out inside of a prison inside New York City, one of the most monitored prisons, and somehow all of the video got deleted. Everything disappeared. All of the logs got deleted. Even the 911 call ended up getting deleted because they only keep it for a year. In an historic thing like that, they didn't keep the 911 call. Are you kidding? The thing is the whole EpiPen thing in general, that was something that we were watching one of a science fiction. We were watching a movie, a blockbuster movie in real life. This is something that only happens in the Bourne Legacy movies, all of that. And then you realize that this stuff happens not only in the movies, but the movies are based on real life. Like, these crazy things happen on a daily basis, and most people are none the wiser. There are people that are taken off. I would say probably 90% of the people that fall off of the tops of buildings are probably not on accident. I mean, like, this is crazy stuff. What gets me is if people do realize that all of these kind of things happen, that they are real corruption happening, how do they not believe half of the stuff that's out there? Like, people look at, all of this as theories, right? That tinfoil hat. How are we the ones wearing the tinfoil hat when there is so much information out there, even though it comes out a year after it happens, like the truth comes out? How do people still believe the lies on day one when they say, oh, no, everything's fine? It's not like that. How can people not question new things that are coming out and new connections when all of the people that are in charge of this stuff are all connected? Everything is connected. And even saying that they're all, connected in one big circle is crazy. Look at the meetings that happen on a yearly basis, several times a year, where you have the most powerful people in the world that either go to a camp or they go to a building and meet secretly, or you have these meetings where they fly from all over the world and meet in one place. And when people say, oh, or so you're saying the whole world got together on the same page to do something crazy? Yeah, they did. In fact, they even put out the list of the people to visit. I just don't get it. And yeah, so all of the people on that list should be fired, slash jailed, slash many other things. Whistleblower tells Congress that government is delivering migrant children to human traffickers. A whistleblower who viewed firsthand what she testifies as sophisticated network of children migrant smuggling into forced labor and other forms of slavery is calling Congress to act and crack down on the U.S. role in that network. It says the hearing, the President J.B. Border Crisis, Exploitation, Unaccompanied Alien Children, was held by the White House, the House Judiciary Subcommittee on Immigration Integrity, Security, and Enforcement, and included HHS whistleblower Tara Lee Rodas as a witness. Rodas, who was detailed with Health and Human Services at emergency intake site in Pomona, California, told lawmakers about what she experienced on the ground. This was one of the things, and I got to be careful here. I thought I was going to help place children in loving homes. Instead, I discovered that children are having through a sophisticated network that begins with recruiting in their home country. They are then taken to the U.S. border. Then it ends when the Office of Refugee Resettlement delivers a child to a sponsor. Some sponsors are criminals and traffickers and members of transnational criminal organizations. Some sponsors view children as commodities and assets to be used for earning income. This is why we are witnessing an explosion of labor trafficking. So this is, again, her claims. But how many of you believe that she's probably telling the truth, and how many of you think that she's totally full of it? I'll just ask you guys. Press 1 if you think she's telling the truth about this. 2 if you don't. And 3 that it's only partly true. If you're watching the replay, just go to the chat replay and look what most people think here. It says, according to Customs and Border Protection, CBP statistics, the numbers of UICs who arrive at the border has swelled from 33,000 in a fiscal year to 146,000 in the fiscal year 2021 and 152,000 in fiscal 22. So far in fiscal year 2023, there have been more than 70,000 encounters. It's April. It's April. There's still 8 months left to go. So it's probably going to beat the 150,000 mark. It says when the child migrants are encountered at the border, they are transferred into custody of Health and Human Services. They are then united with the sponsor, typically a parent or family member already in the U.S. They're bringing people together. They're bringing the love together. For a price. Dex, go ahead.
It's interesting who's quoted at the very end. Domestic policy advisor Susan Rice, who just recently left, had responded that they weren't aware of any, child crises going on. So, kind of interesting that timing has happened as well. But the way this is described as like starting in other countries and then using our border and then our systems that we have in place for our border as part of it is pretty that's pretty extensive. And if true, this is could be like paramount to seeing some changes go down. I don't know. We don't know. It's just a whistleblower, but this was in Congress and it went out as a massive headline this afternoon to all the major outlets hit it. So kind of a big deal as far as the word getting out about it.
So, I mean, we know that there's so many different corrupt things going on, but it's hard to even talk about this kind of stuff happening, especially since it involves the kids. I probably don't have to say what most people thought, but the majority of people believe that this is happening. So, scary, scary stuff. All right. And then thank you, by the way, over on DLive. Thank you for all the love over on DLive. For the glory of Christ, Kimbria, Beer Juice, and Mighty Tort. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for your support. And, of course, on YouTube, thank you, Fairies of Venus today. I appreciate you. Ilea, thank you. Temp or Rarey, thank you, and thank you. Justin True, thank you. Thank you as well for your support. And then Be Real Beast, thank you. Bound by Mountains. Is North Carolina bound? Thank you, Adam, Dex, and Oliver Mods, and the whole Foogle fam. Glad to make a live show. When I don't, please be sure I never miss one. Usually catch up in the morning. Thank you again. I appreciate that. And Stephen McMahon, thank you, says, Adam, we had 20,000 troops in Taiwan 20 years ago, and there were extensive tunnels and underground defenses. So Stephen McMahon, I bet you that there's probably some other military in this room that would say, even years ago, we had a bunch. But I guess my question to you is, do you think that 30,000 maybe was an older number, and now they're saying they have zero and they actually moved them out? Or do you think, by your opinion, we had 20,000 years ago, we probably have more than that now? Yeah. Ryan B., thank you. And everyone else who made it tonight, thank you. Again, it's a shorter show because there was less craziness today. So thank you, everybody, for getting here. Dex, let's talk about the web only. We've got a lot of crazy stuff down there as well.
Yeah, we sure do. Head over to marfooglenews.com and click on the thumbnail for the show, or even easier, open up that show notes link that's down below in the description. Just click that. It'll take you right to this page where all of the content that we've just covered is available for you, as well as the rest of the story, everything else that's on there. Lots going on. We do have some Tucker updates. There's a lot of commentary out there about, why this happened or what bad words were said or etc., which I think I had alluded to as well a couple days ago about how there were text messages of things that he had said about executives. But he also has come out and done his first I guess statement since then. Has nothing to do necessarily about it. It's just him doing his thing, but he did it on Twitter as a video on Twitter. We've got that on the site too, so if you want to see it. Of course, we've got the coverage of the political spectrum that then follows with all that, with everything going on with DeSantis and Disney and TMan, and even the current president and his plans to run. There was a potential scare with Erdogan, who is the president in Turkey. They said he had a heart attack, but he came out and said, no, I didn't. But obviously something's going on, so we're not really sure. So we'll have to pay attention to that. That's there. And lots of other updates. We got the whole UKR, all the additional content that goes on. There's plenty of it scanned pieces from each side saying, chest beating what they've done. That's all there. As well as some other things going on around water consumption, some financial updates, and then get this, I guess there's a new hydrogen semi-conversion kits that are getting the green light in California, which I think are going in these big rigs. So another type of engine that's going to be used. So that and so much more. It is the rest of the story. So head over to marfooglenews.com, click on the thumbnail for the show, or open up that show notes link down below in the description. It'll take you right here. You can get to everything else that we weren't able to cover in the show.
Okay, and I got to tell you guys, so some of you saw last night, we showed you that we had 3 kittens. I have to tell you guys, this is the most insane thing ever. So I don't know if many of you have probably had a cat and maybe have had kittens, but if any of you have a kitten, tell me if this is absolutely normal or if you've ever seen this before. So they were born at least before the show yesterday, around 3 or 4 or something. All 3 of them came out. Boom, boom, boom. Today we had family over, and after they left, we brought them up in the upstairs room. We put them in basically this safe away room from the house, and they were there for about an hour. After my family left, we walked in, and we had before 1 gray kitty and 2 white kitties. All of a sudden, there's a gray kitty over here. It's dry. Everything is dry. Everything, whatever. My daughter puts it back and goes, wait, There's now 2 gray kitties. There was no placenta. There was no nothing. But then we noticed that there was like spots where all of the blood and stuff was, but there was no placenta, no nothing. And now there's 4 kitties. An entire day later, she had another one. 5 minutes later, she has another one. She just had 2 more kittens a day later. Now, everything I Googled, because I had to Google all sorts of stuff, because she's the 3rd cat we've had that had kittens. So this is like not my first rodeo. They say after an hour, they don't have kittens. That's really bad. I thought she was done. They said, count the amount of kittens, count the placentas. There were 3 placentas, 3 kittens. I'm good. My daughter also said that she thought she saw the tail coming out first. So I'm thinking maybe that it was breech and that it was having problems, but it did end up coming out and it's happy and alive and healthy. And maybe the other one, maybe that was stopping it up, but now that that's out, the other one then came out. So now we have 5 freaking kittens. Insanity. Which we are not keeping, and we are finding good homes for. But I just could not believe that. Is that normal? Like, my cat almost could have died, I think. But yeah, so it's been a crazy day. To see, it was like a Matrix glitch. We thought it was a Matrix glitch. We're like, this can't be. Because it was dry. Everything was fine. And it was only like 30 minutes we left, that we didn't have somebody watching her. So, has that ever happened to anybody? Ever? I have never heard of that. I guess some people are saying that's happened before. Drov's Family Garden says, yeah, that's normal. That's nuts. Anyways, thank you guys. I appreciate everybody joining us. There's tons of really great stuff. Also, make sure to go this week. I want to hype it up. We are having calls back. We're bringing calls back. We fixed the sound system. Since we fixed the sound system, that also means we can do video calls and everything else. So we finally have the system fixed. We're going to have calls this week, and hopefully in very, very soon, we're going to have some guests. So thank you guys for being patient. Happy birthday, Jammer. Thank you, mods. Make sure to go over and check them out on marfooglenews.com/friends. And love you guys. Be safe, be prepared, and Marf out. Dex, thank you so much.
Much love. Great job, brother.
And just want to say a special thank you to Fairies of Venus. You are the top supporter tonight. Love you guys. No Shoutro Cam. Apparently it's out. Boom, boom, boom.